Hi Coppites, welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to talk about Paul Joyce. So as a lot of you know, Paul Joyce is a very reputable journalist when it comes to Liverpool Football Club. So he brought out a very interesting article last night about Liverpool. So if you haven't read it, stay with me. This could be a long video, but I'm going to talk about what was said in the article, what I think, my opinions. Anything that Paul Joyce has said is factual. My opinion is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but I expect you to respect me in the comments. If you don't agree with me, that's fine, but do not come slating me. This is just my opinions. Okay, so let's get started. Sometimes an article isn't important because of a headline. Sometimes it's important because of its tone, its timing, and what it doesn't say. Paul Joyce wrote an article last night about Liverpool's transition under Arne Slot. On the surface, it looks routine, but the more I read it, the more it felt different. This video is not clickbait. This video is not panic. And this video is not reporting anything new. This is about reading between the lines and being honest about what I think could be coming next at Liverpool. Let's start with what is factual. According to Paul Joyce, both Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes are now into the final 18 months of their contracts, which currently run until June 2027. That is it. That is the fact. Joyce does not say they are leaving. He does not say talks have broken down. He does not say Liverpool are worried. So this is not a crisis article. Now this is where context matters. A lot of Liverpool supporters, myself included, have long believed that Paul Joyce has historically been close to Michael Edwards' way of thinking. Not officially, not publicly, but in how decisions were explained, framed and contextualised during the Edwards era. Joyce was often the journalist who helped people understand why Liverpool were doing what they were doing. That belief exists. I'm not pretending it doesn't. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up where I'm up to. And that's why this article stood out for me. Because it doesn't read like an Edwards defence piece. It doesn't reassure. It doesn't justify. It doesn't shut criticism down. Instead, it allows criticism to exist. Liverpool have spent roughly 450 million. Joyce states that. But what he doesn't do is important. He doesn't hammer home net spend, aggressively contextualise value, push back against criticism. If this were a protective article, this is where you'd expect it. Instead, the criticism is allowed to sit in the room. I just want you to have a think about that sentence for a second while I have a drink. So let me read you that sentence again. If this were a protective article, this is where you'd expect it. Instead, the criticism is allowed to sit in the room. There's also the wider narrative floating around that Liverpool could be viewed as one of the weaker defending champions in modern Premier League history. I'm not saying that's true, but Joyce doesn't dismiss it either. Again, that's notable. So from this point on, I want to be absolutely clear. What I'm about to say is not reporting. This is what I think. This is my opinion. And I'm telling you that openly, so you don't think that I'm putting words into Paul Joyce's mouth. This is just my opinion. It is entirely possible, not proven, that Michael Edwards is comfortable allowing pressure to exist publicly right now. Not by speaking, not by leaking, but by not correcting the narrative. Sometimes silence is strategic. If you're dealing with ownership, particularly US ownership, letting external pressure exist can be a form of leverage without confrontation. So this bit is the FSG context. Liverpool have spent big, transitionised managers, won the league, yet criticism remains. If you're negotiating future structure, budgets or authority, you don't always need to argue. You let reality speak. Klopp as CEO of football. So this is just my opinion again, remember. And here's where my thinking goes next. If Liverpool were ever to rethink their football structure, I genuinely think Jurgen Klopp makes sense as CEO of football. Now, I want to continue with that just for a second. So when Jurgen Klopp left, I actually said to my wife that this isn't the end for Jurgen Klopp. He will be back at Liverpool. I'm not saying he'll be back as a manager, but I think if Michael Edwards leaves Liverpool or Richard Hughes or both, I can see Jurgen Klopp coming back as the CEO of football. So my thinking is he's currently the CEO of football at Red Bull, yeah? So who's to say that he loves the club, he loves the fans, everything, doesn't he? Who's to say he won't come back and do the same job at Liverpool? There's also something that I wanted to mention quickly as well. When Michael Edwards first came back to Liverpool, he was promised he could be the spearhead for a multi-club ownership. That hasn't happened, has it? Just think about that for a second. That was part of the deal for Michael Edwards to come back. So we'll continue. Not managing, not coaching, but overseeing culture, direction, and long-term football vision. He has credibility with the fans, players, and ownership. He understands Liverpool better than almost anyone alive. Alonso and Edwards question. Now let's talk about Xabi Alonso. Now I wanted Xabi Alonso in the summer. I don't think Alonso comes to Liverpool to be a head coach. He looks like a manager, someone who wants authority, not instruction. And I'm not convinced that works comfortably under the traditional Edwards head coach model. Gerrard as assistant, logical, not romantic. And this is where Steven Gerrard comes into my thinking. Not as a manager, not as PR, but as an assistant manager. He understands the club, he understands the pressure, and he could act as a bridge between Alonso, the squad, and the club culture. So as we know, Alonso and Gerrard played together at Liverpool. Gerrard has several times credited Xabi Alonso with making him look better, because he knew he could bomb forward. Like when it was Gerrard and Torres, for example, he knew he could bomb forward and Alonso would hold, you know, behind him. He didn't have issues with that at all. Sporting director options if structure changes. If Edwards ever did step away, two names make football sense. So bear in mind, we're talking about the sporting director here. So obviously my plan would be Jurgen Klopp as CEO, taking the Edwards role. I don't know what you think, but this would be my two that I would pick as sporting director. Michael Zorc, Klopp's sporting director at Dortmund. Now these two have a really good relationship, and obviously Zorc brought Jurgen Klopp to Dortmund. Or Simon Rolfs, the man who hired Xabi Alonso. Not glamorous, not loud, but structurally logical. Now, my reason behind Simon Rolfs is quite simple. So we're saying that Jurgen Klopp is CEO, yeah? And Alonso is the manager. So Alonso is going to say, if you want a sporting director, I think I could talk Simon Rolfs into becoming sporting director. Now that man is a very, very shrewd, not just as a sporting director, he's a shrewd businessman and he knows his football. So any of them two for me would be fantastic sporting directors for Liverpool Football Club. Is there a compromise? This is a question for you in the comments. And here's the key question. Is there a compromise where Edwards stays, but Alonso comes in as manager, not a head coach? If yes, this could work beautifully. If no, I'm not convinced Alonso fits Liverpool's current model. What this does not mean, let's be clear one last time, this does not mean Edwards is leaving. Hughes is unhappy. FSG are under attack. Change is imminent. This is about possibility, not prediction. So my takeaway of this, from all the reading I've done, the research I've done, so maybe this article is routine, or maybe it's the quiet start of a conversation about Liverpool's next evolution. Not just on the pitch, but above it. Either way, this is the kind of thing worth talking about properly, calmly, thoroughly, without nonsense. So that's my take on the Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes article, and Arne Slot, to be fair, but he didn't really mention much about Arne Slot. I will put a link in the video description to the article. I will warn you, it is behind a paywall, so if you're not paying a subscription for the Times, if you use Grok, I've been told, you can post a link in there and it will do it for you. It will open it, it will do it all for you. Let me know what you think in the comments about some of the questions I've raised, my opinions. That's it for now. Take it easy.